From Mountain Home to Raft River, we've got all the District 4 analysis you'll need to know. This is the Magic Valley Prepcast with Scott Burton.
That's right. It is the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, bringing you everything in District 4, week in, week out. It's been a while. Brandon Baney with Scott Burton. Scott, what's going on?
My friends call me Maverick.
Well, I know how you spent your summer.
Yeah, I tell you what, I think I lined up to go watch that movie about 15 times. So hence the Aviators to start the show. That just kind of was part of the summer, was a little bit of Top Gun.
Yeah, it looks good. So this is kind of this is going to be a lighter podcast, a lighter prepcast. It's kind of a reintroduction to all of our listeners or viewers as to what we do each week here on the Magic Valley Prepcast. This is officially, Scott, season 2, episode 1, because we had a great opening season where we basically came on most weeks. We came on just about every week throughout the course of the school year and talked about the biggest stories that were happening throughout the Magic Valley, whether it was the big schools like Twin Falls and Canyon Ridge, all the way down to the smallest schools. One of the last prepcasts we did actually was with a father and son from Oakley, Peyton Beck and his dad, Cody Beck, the boys basketball coach. So we cover it all here each and every week on the Magic Valley Prepcast.
Yeah, the cool thing that we did is as that, I mean, when we launch it, we don't know how it's going to go. You know, we don't know what kind of following, how the thing is going to morph and what it's going to turn into. But, you know, once we kind of got a couple of episodes, it started to take its own life in a sense of it became more than just scores and box scores. It became stories. It became, you know, things that you're not going to read in the paper. And that's what was so cool about what we did last year, that hopefully we can continue this year.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, for example, you know, we had all sorts of incredible stories about, you know, the Gooding softball team and how they like to talk in British accents to keep things light at practice, or, you know, the Bear family from Kimberly, you know, Jackson and Gatlin, who were still in high school, and the older brother, Peyton, who was competing in college, and that incredible athletic family. But even Scott, you know, we stepped a couple of times outside the athletics realm entirely. I remember last fall you gave us a nice history lesson on the town of Declo and how it got its name.
See, that's what we do. We not only entertain, but we educate.
That's right.
That is fun. Just a little deep dive into the history of Declo and doing stuff like that you wouldn't normally get in a sports podcast. But, you know, when you take the whole thing, these sports towns are rich in community, and that community has to come from somewhere. So why not figure out where that was? And we learned, you know, some pretty cool things about Declo.
Yeah. So I assume we're going to pick up a couple of new viewers or followers along the way that maybe weren't around last year. I will tell you, you can go back and watch and or listen to all of the prepcasts that we did last year. If there's a particular team or topic that strikes you as interesting, there are a number of different ways you can consume this podcast each and every week. There's 2 audio ways, 2 video ways. If you want the audio only, if you're not quite ready to see, you know, Scott's face, you gotta. It's like the pool, right? You gotta dip your toes in first. You can't just dive in, right?
Good Lord, you sound like every ex-girlfriend I ever had. I'm just not ready to see your face yet. So
we're not. If you're not ready for our faces, you can get audio only versions of this prepcast at IdahoSports.com, our homepage. Across the top, you'll see all these different options. You know, scores, schedules, game streams, and you should definitely check all of those out. But you'll also see one that says Prepcasts, and there's a little drop-down menu. And from there, you click on Magic Valley Prepcast. There's a little player on the page. You just click play, and you're off and running. You can also download this podcast. And honestly, you should just subscribe to it, because then every time we push out a new episode, it automatically gets downloaded to your device of choice, whether that's a tablet, a phone, laptop, etc. So subscribe to the Magic Valley Prepcast, and then you'll always get the new episode. You won't have to go looking for it every week, but wherever you download your podcast, Google, Spotify, on Android, it's called Podcast Addict. I have an Android phone that's really old. So wherever you, Apple, Google, etc., wherever you download your podcasts, you can get the audio there. If you want to watch the video of it, you can do so two ways. We have the Idaho Sports YouTube channel, and we always put each episode up there on YouTube, as well as the IdahoSports.com Facebook page. We put the video up there every week as well. So, Scott, a lot of different ways to consume this weekly podcast.
Yeah, nobody has any excuses anymore.
That's right. No doubt. Okay, so Scott, introduce or reintroduce yourself to our audience. Tell us a little bit about your background, what you do currently. The tiger tail on the back wall behind you is obscured by a new plant. Was that something you picked up in the off season, Scott?
Well, it's over the off season. First of all, hi, my name is Pete Mitchell, and my friends call me Maverick. And I am the athletic director at Jerome High School, and I may be 52 years old, but I act like I'm 12 half the time. And if you watch our podcast, you'll see why. But over the summer, when you're referring to this, I had my office painted, decorated. I'm staring at organization with, I can't even show you because it's hooked my thing. Oh yeah, I can. I'm still tearing it apart, but I've just moved some things around and I got all of my sports memorabilia. It's awesome. So anyway, that was what I did over the summer as far as the office goes. And there's the tiger. So, but yeah, just a little bit more. Been working with Idaho Sports for 12 years now or whatever it is. Came on as a broadcaster 12 years ago and been going strong ever since. If you've ever listened to any of the 4A state tournaments, whether it's basketball, boys and girls, baseball, that's what I do is I cover those state tournaments but other than that, try not to burn the building down here at Jerome and so far, so good. But the school year is just getting started, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and that's what makes you one of the most versatile broadcasters / personalities that we have at IdahoSports.com because you've done the broadcasting side of it, and you're one of the best. But you've also coached. Before you became the athletic director, you were a coach in a lot of different sports, and now that you are an active athletic director. I a lot of times like to bring up the bigger overall statewide issues to you and get your perspective on. It's a perspective I really appreciate and respect because you're in it. You're doing it every day, and you can talk about what the challenges are or what's going well.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun to be kind of plugged into that because I'm born and raised right here. Graduated Jerome High School in the 80s when Jerome was really killing it. And so having that type of background and then coaching here for almost 30 years, never having left. I feel like I'm plugged into the Magic Valley for sure. But having done, sports and high school sports and stuff for as long as I have, 3 decades, that's it kind of grandfathers me into a lot of issues past and present. And so I feel like, I kind of have my finger on the pulse a little bit. There's always stuff I'm learning, of course, but that's a unique perspective. Just feel like I'm a dinosaur that I've been here for so long, but it's really cool and I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, one of the most popular things we did last year in terms of content on our site, YouTube channel, Facebook page, etc., was you kind of had a really nice detailed breakdown of the Max Preps ranking system that's been used to seed teams at state tournaments, and in some cases in like football, determine who gets to go to the playoffs as well. Because a lot of people, last year was the first year that Idaho had implemented that, and there was a lot of questions from not just fans, but like coaches. Even coaches were like, hey, how does this work? What is going on? And you were able to actually get in touch with somebody at Max Prep. That door doesn't open for just anybody, Scott. You've got to have a little cachet to get those doors to open, and you did it. You did some digging and got some really good info about Max Preps. In fact, it's still on our homepage if anybody's interested. It's at the bottom of the homepage, the mystery of the Max Preps ranking system. And you can click on that and see what Scott found out last year.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I was just having this conversation with somebody over the weekend. We have a 4A and we have a 3A school that's really, really good that wants to play us. And our, coaches are like, well, should we do that? Because that's going to hurt our Max Preps rankings and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, the whole thing that we exposed, and I don't want to say exposed, that sounds like it was scandalous, but it wasn't. It was just questions that needed to be answered. And, we were very fortunate to get in touch with people from Max Preps, and they were very kind and very accommodating to my questions and visited with me for a while. And they are still figuring it out themselves. And that one thing they did say is that if Idaho doesn't like the way that it's run, we can always tweak it. Now, that's obviously going to come from the IHSAA office and how they want to do things. But, we did see some of those things happen last year in the regular season directly related to a Max Preps ranking when we saw a football game just kind of absolutely implode in the final seconds because a team was thinking about Max Preps rankings. We saw it in basketball because of the point spreads. We saw it, but all that said, the argument still has to be, is it better than what we had? And that depends on who you ask, because one of the things, I don't mean to get on all this again, but one of the things that was a problem was that, in the previous way, we had a lot of, state championship games being played in the semifinals. They just were not seeded well. And you saw teams in district tournaments just throwing games because they wanted to be on a different side of the bracket. And that's been happening ever since I started coaching in '93, but now you can't do that. You've got to be seeded correctly. Okay. Flip side, our softball team made it to state, won the district title, goes all the way to Post Falls, their first round game against Twin Falls. So there is no perfect system, but if you do want a quick little history lesson, go back and watch that podcast, and I'll end it there because I could go off.
Definitely. Well, you mentioned Jerome and Twin Falls. Those are two of the schools we'll cover. And lest anybody think that, this is a Homer podcast where, oh yeah, it's Jerome all the time because Scott's the athletic director of Jerome. It's not. We talk about Jerome when it's justified, but honestly, we talked about Twin Falls probably twice as much last year because, well, they were doing a lot of the winning, right? They were volleyball champs and did well in soccer and baseball and softball and wrestling. And it was. We cover the biggest stories. We don't have any sort of bias or preconceived notion.
No, not at all. And I know that that's probably just something naturally thought of when you say, okay, well, yeah, he's the Jerome guy. Well, I am the Jerome guy, but I'm the Magic Valley guy when it comes to this. And, I don't want to sit and talk about Jerome all the time. I want to learn about what other schools are doing, about the stories behind everything else. And if, there's a story somewhere else, dang right, we're going to cover it. My Jerome hat is off. I got my Indian motorcycle hat on right now. And that's what we are at the podcast. And I'm Jerome, but I'm Magic Valley Prepcast.
For sure. Another school we talked about a lot last year was Burley, especially during girls basketball season. So Scott, I did want to touch on probably the biggest story of the off season in terms of Magic Valley athletics. And that was the Burley Bobcats win the 4A girls basketball title pretty convincingly last year, led by the mother-daughter duo of head coach Amber Whiting and her daughter, junior Amari Whiting, who had committed to the University of Oregon. So we're talking about the Pac-12. I guess it's now the Pac-10 that UCLA and USC left. But anyways, that's a different topic another day. But anyways, Pac-12 conference. She's an Oregon commit, one of the best players, male or female, that the state of Idaho has seen in some time. And the thought was, okay, they're going to run it back. Who's going to stop Burley as they try to repeat? Now, Burley can still run it back, but it's going to be a lot tougher because, shockwaves came through during the summer as Amber Whiting was hired as the women's basketball coach at BYU. So first of all, let's talk about that. What a tremendous opportunity for Amber Whiting to go from a high school coach to, and she, as far as I could tell, didn't have a ton of experience in college besides playing college basketball. So to go from a high school coach to a Big 12 coach, because BYU is moving to the Big 12 pretty soon, is pretty phenomenal for Amber. So congratulations to her.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this was the buzz. As soon as it came out, it's like, how in the world does somebody who has never coached college at any level, just high school, get a massive D1 job just like that? And that was the buzz. Okay, so you look at it for what it is, and you're like, okay, something's fishy here. Well, BYU's taking a chance, absolutely, because they're hiring an inexperienced coach. But here's what they get, right? First of all, Amber Whiting was a heck of a high school basketball coach, no question about it. She ran her stuff at Burley like it was a college program. She was on top of everything. She was organized. So, I mean, she's not your typical high school coach, but there's two other things that are playing into this. And number one is Amari. Okay, Amari committed to the University of Oregon, right? Well, guess who's not committed to Oregon anymore? Okay, so BYU gets a shot at her. But that wasn't going to happen without Amber coming on board. Now, you look at it that way and you're going to say, well, they're using Amber to get to Amari. Well, that's part of the benefit, but they're not actually using Amber to get to Amari. They believe in Amber because she runs the biggest AAU program in the state of Utah. And her ability to recruit in that state and the pipelines that she is plugged into is what they want, because they know that what they're going to get with her is she will control the entire state of Utah AAU basketball. She's all over it. They get Amari as well. And so, yeah, they're taking a chance with the experience part of it. Now, she's going to have one more year in that conference that she's in before she makes the big jump, so she can, kind of maybe get her feet wet. But that's what BYU's getting. Okay, they're getting a twofer. They get Amari, and they get Amber's ability to recruit with her AAU programs in Utah. So you can see where it's coming from. Say what you want about experience, because that's the argument against her, but they got a pretty good package deal there.
They did. And so, as you mentioned, Amari Whiting decommits from Oregon, commits to BYU. And, initially, it was said that, oh, yeah, Amari's going to stay at Burley, even though Amber's going to be, I personally didn't think that made sense. If your mom's got a job in Utah, it makes sense that you would also go to Utah. And that's what Amari's doing. She's going to play her senior season at Timpview High School in Utah. And so that's, a loss for Burley. Certainly, they also lost a lot of those core pieces to graduation as well. So this is a Burley team that pretty much is starting from scratch, and we'll see what they're able to do throughout the winter. Back to the Whiting thing with BYU, the way I look at it, Scott, is it's a win for all parties involved. For BYU, the Whiting name with Trent and Amber, it's synonymous with BYU basketball, right?
Sure.
So you're bringing a name that is going to get fans in the seats and fill that arena because they're excited. It's one of their own, one of the great players coming back to coach. So for BYU, it's a win there. For Amber, it's certainly a win because built into this position is essentially, if her and Amari are both there together, it's like 4 years of job security. She's gonna have 4 years to build this program. She's not gonna face that pressure of a lot of times coaches, by year 3, if we don't win 20, 25 games, you're out the door. That's unlikely to happen if you've got Amber and Amari both there. And for Amari, it's a win because she gets to play for her mom. And for BYU, it's a big win as well because the college landscape has completely changed with the transfer portal, where you are, where I live in Pocatello, Idaho State University won the Big Sky Conference regular season title in women's basketball and lost 12 of their 15 players. They transferred to other schools. Some went to bigger schools to see if they could compete. Some went to smaller schools because they weren't getting enough time. but it is the Wild West in college basketball. But now with Amari Whiting, you've got a commodity that is in your program for 4 years, as long as Amber is still coaching. And that is a foundational piece you can build around, and you just can't do that very often in college basketball anymore because of the transfer portal.
No, absolutely right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, everything you said is right on the money too. And like I said, the only knock and question is going to be experience. You just don't see those kind of jumps, but all the pieces were in place, and they believe enough in Amber and what she's able to do that she's going to be able to make that jump. Okay. And so, yeah, I'm really interested in following this story because I'm sure we'll talk about it down the road in the winter when things get going, just to see how to check in with them and see how it's going. And I'm sure they'll be happy to chat with us for a minute because they're they like Idaho sports and we've treated them well and they've been great to us. So I'm interested to see what happens with that.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how the landscape adapts to that loss. And that's a whole season away, Scott, because we've got to get through fall sports season first. That's always the busiest time of year. We've got on IdahoSports.com right now, our statewide football previews are up and running. We're going to add in the last batch of teams this week / this weekend. By next week, they should all be up there ready to go. We're going to have a cross-country preview coming up in a couple of weeks, soccer previews, boys and girls, volleyball preview. It is the busy time of year, Scott. Monday was we're recording this on Wednesday, August 10th. Monday, the 8th, was kind of opening day, right? That's when everybody has that first practice of the year. The physicals are in. And I did see that Lighthouse Christian, they've got a new coach this year for football, Jason Smith. They did like the Midnight Madness thing. They were out on the field at midnight on Monday practicing for the first time. It was kind of a cool deal.
Yeah, those things are always fun. Colleges get away with it a lot more than high school does. But if you're able to pull that off and, it's a private Christian school, you can do whatever you want. But that was really cool. It's something just to breathe life into a new regime, to get everybody excited and to get Lighthouse kind of, back to that dominance that they had experienced in the past. So, yeah, that was fun to see.
Well, we'll talk about Lighthouse. We'll talk about all the big football storylines you need to know, and we'll preview those other fall sports as well, probably over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll get into actual competition, and we'll have actual things to talk about at the end of the month. So it's buckle up, Scott. You ready for season 2 of the Magic Valley Prepcast?
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're at it, people that are listening to this now, hit us up with stories, that are beyond the box score. We covered so many of those last year, and that was my favorite part. And I sound like a broken record every time I say it, but you can't get that stuff in the paper. Let us hear it. Shoot me an email, shoot Brandon an email, whatever. Let us explore those stories and give credit to these unsung heroes and the history of things. And man, that is so cool to me.
Yes, Brandon at IdahoSports.com is the email address. And yeah, we love to hear from the fans. If you've got topics you want us to talk about, stories, athletes, coaches, yeah, hit us up. Brandon at IdahoSports.com is the email address there. All right, season 1 was the year of the musher, Scott. We'll see.
That was so cool how that just stuck. We stumbled onto it, and then next thing they should have shirts made up. Year of the musher. Man, that was fun. It was fun how that stuck.
For sure. The Camas County Mushers had such a great season last year. We talked about it all throughout season 1, year of the musher. We'll see whose year it'll be in season 2. It might be the Mushers again. Spoiler alert, they're going to be pretty solid in most sports again. We'll see.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to the first episode of season 2 of the Magic Valley Prepcast. We'll be back again next week. For Scott Burton, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning in on IdahoSports.com.